So welcome to the UpLevel Podcast, Christy King.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
Well, Rachel and I are so happy that you said yes. As I've told you, we've been really wanting to get your particular wisdom to share with our community. We've been really lucky that we've been working with you for some time now, supporting you in your mission to build a coaching culture inside your organization. Yeah. And it's been such a cool experience in the different iterations, and then also to see how you've grown as a leader in serving this vision and this purpose.
Yeah, thank you. I mean, I don't think I could have done it without you all and Coactive. I remember meeting, I told Rachel this a while ago. The first call I made was to really bring coaching skills into BDO and figure out how to do it with Coactive, was to Rachel, and sitting in a Pizza Hut parking lot while I was picking up pizza for my kids. I very vividly remember her. She's like, well, we've never done anything like this for such a large group of people, but we've done some, we're planning to do something very similar. And so we would love to figure out how to make this work. So the coactiveness of the relationship from the very beginning has been critical, I think. So so glad to have you.
Yeah, it's been a great partnership and hopefully a lot more to come. And let's just start with your personal definition of coaching. How do you define it?
The thing that I guess that instinctively comes to mind is a superpower, but you probably want me to get a little more specific than that. Really just, and there's a little bit of backstory to why I call it a superpower, but we'll probably get into that later. I think it's just helping others help themselves, if that makes any sense. You're just utilizing curiosity, genuinely listening to people, asking powerful questions that really spark somebody else's curiosity. It's really, and also I like to tell people it's a skill and a role, because we often get confused about that when we're trying to explain it to people. That they think they're coaching, but they're actually advising, but they're in an advisor role and they need to coach. And I'm like, you can coach as an advisor, but when you're coaching someone, you're not advising them. So it's interesting to have to explain that distinction there.
And that's so common that we see with our organizational clients. Part of the unlearning for the folks that they're training is what is pure coaching versus advising, mentoring, consulting, problem solving. And tell us a little bit about your own journey to finding coaching, and what are some of the things you had to unlearn to develop yourself as a coach?
Oh gosh, things to unlearn. So many. My journey to coaching really started, about 10-ish years ago. Bear with me. It's a little bit of a story. I had this habit of carrying around a talent development magazine with me every time I travel, but I'd never actually open it up. It's just the airplane reading, right? And this one time I just happened to open up the magazine and opened up to the centerfold of an older gentleman. He was fully clothed, but he
was the centerfold, the coaching centerfold.
Literally, he stretched across the entire magazine with an article. And so you turn it vertically and it says positive leadership at the top of it. And it was all about this man, Steve Gladys, who has a program at George Mason that is all about positive leadership. And at the time I was tasked with creating a leadership program. It was the first I was really doing all on my own, completely original idea, to set up this workshop. And I thought, hey, we could use a little bit of that positive leadership. So a component, interestingly enough, I never did anything like this before, but I said, I'm just going to call this guy up. So I called him. Wow. Centerfold. I called him and talked to him about what his program was, what he does, what his background is. Turns out he's a professional coach. He's been doing this for a while. He's written a book, The Coach Approach to Leadership. And coaching was a key aspect of this positive leadership program. So they covered strength, coaching, mindfulness, and positive leadership. Those are the four major components. So we, thankfully, I was able to get it approved to bring him in. And it was a little bit of a nerve-wracking situation where we're very used to customizing content for BDO. Whenever we work with someone, we'll typically bring them in, but BDO, I said, is what I like to say.
Yeah.
And that wasn't really a possibility with this. So I was a little nervous about how this program was going to go working with him. But when I met him in person, he was instantly just like, we'd known each other for years. He was so welcoming and open and curious about me and just wanted to know all about me and what I was trying to accomplish for the organization and how could he help. And it was such a nice experience. And throughout the program, he sat on the sidelines with me when he wasn't facilitating. He had a co-facilitator, and he was sort of peppering me with questions, which I found a little annoying at first because I was trying to focus and see how things were going. But eventually, I would respond and he'd continue to ask me questions. And it was very much focused on, well, what are my goals? And what do I hope, how do I hope this program goes? And what do I want to do long term with it? How are we incorporating coaching into the organization? Things like that. And by the end of the whole experience, I realized when he had gotten me to firmly believe that I needed to now establish a culture of coaching at BDO, that was now my mission in life, that he had been coaching me the whole time.
Like, yes.
That's a superpower. Like, I didn't even know what he was doing. And he helped me arrive at that, just through that process of questioning and listening. So
what a powerful experience. Like you literally had the experience that you knew this is what needs to be created inside my organization. Leaders need to have these skills so that other people get connected to their reason of being at the company and how they can use their own values and mission to support the work that they're doing.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, experience in it was the key.
Amazing.
Yeah.
So then, how has coaching transformed you as an individual? I know you're a mom, as a human, how has coaching transformed you personally?
Yeah, significantly. Soon after that, I was growing as a leader and facing more and more challenges of things that I needed to advocate for and influence I needed to have, relationships I needed to build. And I was struggling a little bit, honestly, to build those relationships and navigate all of that. So I asked my own boss if I could have a coach, because I had been introduced to the power of it and thought I could probably benefit from this myself. And also, if I want to build this culture, I need to really experience it firsthand. So thankfully, she agreed. I got a 360, which was critical. And I always recommend that to the coaching process to really reveal those opportunities for development. And it shined a light on some things that I didn't necessarily want to face, but on some level knew existed that I needed to work on in order to really improve in some ways I wanted to improve and needed to in order to be successful. And it required me to be a lot more humble and to look inwardly a lot more, be more mindful and self-reflective than maybe was comfortable, face some hard truths, and be more patient, honestly. I think that all of those things has helped me be a better leader and a better mom. To be honest, you mentioned that I am a mom, and I regularly coach my kids, use coaching skills on my kids, and have found that such a more positive way of being than the sort of command and control approach that I kind of didn't. I thought that was the way to be as a parent, but did never like it. I did not want to be that way. And it's amazing how those skills transfer to, professional environments, home environments, whatever the situation.
I think that's what's one of the most incredible part of the investment that organizations like BDO has made. Not only is it going to benefit the business and the work, but it really benefits the individual human and then everybody else that they're touching, families, community members, children. And what more? I mean, that's to me, the organizations nowadays offering that. What more can you offer than helping the person be a better version of themselves?
Right. Yeah. Yes, absolutely. I was thinking about this conversation, and one of the things that came to mind is a lot of what I've been looking into recently, the feedback that we're getting from our leadership programs, the things that I'm trying to hear and listen to people to build a case for more coaching. What's really needed. Our recent pulse results, engagement surveys, they're telling us that people want to be heard and seen. They want more communication. They want more feedback. Those are the things that always come up over and over again. But to me, that says they want to be heard and seen. And that is the most powerful thing coaching can do for someone, is to help them feel heard and seen, because you are there 100% as the coach to just be with this person and listen to them and really reflect back to them what you're seeing. And I've seen people just open up so much when they feel that.
And it's true. The workforce nowadays has really shifted to that. It's very important for certain generations. Like, that's number one, to be seen, to be valued, to know that my manager, my organization, that my values are aligned with them. And coaching is a great vehicle to have that all happen. But what about the folks who are still like, well, that's just touchy-feely stuff. And what a bunch of blah, because in your organization, it's been really interesting to witness the transformation and the transition of the culture absorbing this. So will you tell us some of the growing pains that you've experienced as a leader bringing this technology into your organization? Because I know it hasn't been all rainbows and puppy dogs.
Yeah. It's interesting because it's few and far between. And I know that, to your point earlier about, well, no, I think I was in a conversation with someone else. My conversations run together because there's so many about coaching. But I was talking earlier with someone about how coaching needs to be goal focused. And I think that was one of the biggest, like, if we're not pushing them on a path to achieve a specific goal, then, that's not as valuable to us as an organization. And so how do you do that effectively without making it your agenda as the coach? Yeah. And I think that's one of the things we've struggled against is like, it's how do you really prove the ROI of it? Because it takes a really long time. It doesn't feel like we're making any progress, that we're not getting anything done. So that's some of the struggle, that mentality I think that we face. It's interesting though. I think that as people go through the experience, like I did, that's why I've loved bringing coactive coaching into the organization and integrating it in our leadership programs, is because of all of our leaders were so used to the come into a classroom, sit behind a table, in many cases, open up your laptop and just watch a presentation on the screen. That experience that we do now in our coaching sessions, where it's wide open, like the coactive programs, like nothing in front of you, you're in a semicircle. A lot of people walk in and say, I feel like I'm at AA, which is like, what is happening here? But inevitably, by the end of it, everybody is in it, and they get the benefit of it. And some people are still, okay, I don't know how I'm going to use this in my day to day. And that's another sort of roadblock we have to overcome. This is all great, but how do I apply these skills on the job? Mm-hmm. And so I think that it takes us some time to help them understand that, as well as the more you practice this, the more you embody these behaviors and these skills, it will come naturally. It will flow naturally in the flow of work.
And so then what kind of ROI are you seeing because of this investment?
Yeah. Broadly, it's difficult to measure. We're still in the early stages of really integrating coaching, developing leaders as coaches, and then also integrating formalized coaching into our organization. I want to do a lot more work around specifically measuring tangibly in small pockets how coaching has affected change and ROI. But individually in my own coaching sessions with leaders, what I see is people feeling a sense of relief and ability to relax and becoming unstuck, which causes, the stuckness is where they aren't productive. They have difficulty moving forward and achieving goals. They have difficulty navigating relationships with others and advocating for themselves. And I've seen people realize through the coaching process that they can advocate for themselves and that they don't have to work a million hours a day and not have any work life fit. If they for some reason don't realize these things, no one's telling them they have to. It's all self-imposed. But through that process of just coaching, so much opens up for them. And then that shifts their attitude more positively. They're able to self-advocate and end up being more productive as well and more engaged. And where they might have come in wanting to leave the organization because they're so burnt out, then they leave feeling like, you know what, I can do this. And I feel a little bit more relaxed about it. Yes, there's going to be some hard times, but I know I can get through it.
And these are all significant metrics that can be measured. And like you said, you're going to get zoned in on pockets and get specific measurements. But I also think part of where we are as a culture is that it's time to redesign what are the metrics we're measuring in the workplace, because things like someone saying, I'm happy to be here. Right? We know that leads to productivity, which leads to business results. So in the past, the measurement is always the business result. But what has to happen in order for an individual to get to the business result? So I think part of it is all of us who are in this field rethinking, what do we measure in order to create work environments where people want to be there, where there's some alignment to their values and their own purpose. So there's some awareness of that. And this level of engagement and energy in the workplace so that, again, people want to stay. It creates a culture. I mean, I think when we talk about a culture of coaching, that's what we're talking about. It's like an energy that I want to be there, even if, people are in hybrid work environments right now. Right. So that's shifted everything as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And I think we've seen that in our pulse or engagement surveys that we do every year, firm wide. Is we've continued to expand the questions that is incorporating more around engagement, because obviously it's top of mind across the world right now. Levels of engagement and how that impacts productivity. We've all become more sensitized to how important it is to have a sense of well-being generally to be successful at work or at home or wherever it may be. So that focus on well-being is, I think, trickled through to the way we measure engagement and the way, we utilize that information to make decisions about how we're going to continue to support and develop our leaders.
Woo, woo. My love language. What's been one of your biggest challenges in bringing this work into your organization?
One of the biggest challenges. I think that everybody values the importance of developing yourself, self-development. Even our leaders will say it's important for others to be developed. Individuals will say, I value my own personal development, and yet taking the time to do it is always a challenge.
Yeah.
And so allowing people time to do it, when you've got the pressures of the deadlines and the hours that need to be met and that sort of thing. And it feels like, I think this is something that's a huge investment, for a process that takes a long time. And so I think that is like painting that picture of how it doesn't have to be a huge investment for a process that takes a long time, that impacts a small number of people. There are painting the picture of all the different ways you can go about incorporating coaching into a culture by developing coaches that as leaders themselves, building those coaching skills, giving them access to coaching, just expecting coaching to happen in the performance management process or in, goal setting meetings, providing all of the different avenues to continue to connect back to coaching that kind of keeps it top of mind for people. I think that's been my biggest challenge, is just continuing to paint the picture and make the case when I'm constantly competing with the work that needs to be done and the pace of change that's just stressing everyone out.
Yes. Yes. Yeah, that's really helpful. So I'm thinking about other Christy Kings, other people in your roles inside organizations, and maybe they're at the beginning of attempting to bring in a coaching culture.
Yeah.
This is really good guidance. Like, what I hear you saying is you're going to have to repeat the vision over and over, and the enrollment piece never stops.
Yes.
Right. And it's a process. It's not an event. It's not going to happen because you do one coach training or you get a set of leaders and an executive coach. Yeah. You're also using coaching in many different ways. Like, you're having them access their own coach. You're training them in coaching skills. Internally, individual contributors are receiving coaching from their managers, and all of these different touch points over time is what leads to the ROI, what leads to the coaching culture. What other guidance would you give folks in your type of, sitting at your type of desk, who are looking to bring this work inside?
Yeah. And I love the way you just articulated everything that I said. That was perfect. I guess I would say, like you said, don't try to do it all at once. It's okay to start small and expect to repeat yourself over and over again. We started really, well, it sounds ironic. We started really small by training hundreds of partners at a time, and just the basic skills of questioning and listening. Like, if we can just get them to master questioning and listening, that'd be a long way.
Hello, that in itself creates transformation. Let's all listen deeper. Let's ask better questions that focus on the person versus the problem to help them find the solution. Okay.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
So just starting with the foundations you can make significant strides that way. I'd say just the one of the things that I found when I was sort of doing my research on how to create a culture of coaching is you have to explore all the avenues. So, like you said, through the coaching curriculum, utilizing leaders as coaches internally, leveraging external coaches as well. I mean, we do all of that. So there was like three major buckets of, like, if you want to create a culture, use external coaches, build a cadre of coaches internally, and train your leaders as coaches. We started with the train your leaders as coaches because, one, that was the easiest sell and the most affordable, and it needed to be done anyway. And also, you get a broader reach, a broader saturation that way as well, if you're building your leaders as coaches. I would say leverage other things to help you expand upon the usage of coaching skills. By that, I mean, we utilize Clifton's strength. We've integrated that in our culture to build a self-awareness for strength, but also create a common language that people could really start talking about themselves and their teammates, and like having sort of connection points to ways that they could identify with each other, understand each other better. And that sort of opened this door to team coaching. We'll call it team coaching or team building sessions, where people are getting more comfortable with just having these curious conversations and more vulnerable, open conversations about themselves. So it's not exactly coaching, but it's tangential in a way because it's similar skills that you're building there.
That's great guidance. And to hear the ripple effect of this investment, I think that's something on the onset that not everybody is aware of. And so that's great to hear you articulate that. What about potential vendors organizations like Rachel and I, we represent through UpLevel, we represent Coactive, but there's lots of other consultants and modalities of coaching. So for you in your role, what are you looking for in an external vendor to partner in this development of a coaching culture? So for those folks that are listening, and this is going to be for them.
Yeah. Like I said, we like to BDOize everything. I think it's important, and we're probably not the only organization that does this, but I know our people are not unique to the profession. And also we have a very special culture here that we want to ensure whoever we're partnering with understands that culture and our people and what we face. And so there may be times when we want to adopt most everything that you have, but your willingness to make little adjustments here and there to ensure that it's aligned with our culture, but also our curriculum, because we've built a lot internally. So we've created our own epic framework for coaching conversations, as you know, Christy. And this was something we did early on because we thought we need to have a structure for people. People felt more comfortable when there was a process to follow. So being willing to integrate things like that are already ingrained in our culture is really critical.
So for other colleagues, coaches, vendors who are listening, what I'm hearing Christy saying is it's being flexible and having a design eye where how can we integrate our intellectual property in the existing program and customize it so that it really meets the people within the culture so that it's accessible. Because what we don't want to do is come in with a whole nother set of a toolbox with all this other stuff in it. And then people are saying, wait a second, how does this relate to strengths? Or how does this relate to Epic? Like we want to be able to design those threads. So I think that's really, really good guidance. In the Coactive, we have the cornerstone of dance in this moment, which essentially means be flexible, be agile, right? So as a Coactive leader, practitioner, business person, that's a really good reminder to be on that cornerstone and to be practicing that with our organizational clients. And I mean, with everybody, but in this context. Yeah.
Yeah, that's perfect.
What are you most excited about with what's unfolding inside BDO as a result of this vision you've been holding?
I am excited about the enthusiasm that we continue to get around coaching from individuals who are experiencing it, who maybe haven't experienced it, but want to. There's no one saying, no, I don't want this. It's needed. It's being asked for more and more. I think that the fact that people know to come to us now, that we can be a source for that for them, is fantastic, because they didn't know it. We're a big organization. So having that visibility to everyone is challenging sometimes, but knowing that, I think I'm probably known for being someone who's passionate about coaching because I talk about it so much. So it's just kind of now that everyone kind of knows this about me, they're there in our group, that they just come to us naturally with these requests and they know that we can support them. I think what's on the horizon excites me as well. I have a lot of ideas on how we can continue to grow, and the fact that we've incorporated coaching, professional coaches in our programs in the way that we have opens the door for us to just do more, because we're really demonstrating the value of coaching by doing that. And we have all sorts of data now from our program participants that can reinforce how impactful it is.
So exciting. Christy King, you're rocking it. Over there. And you're following your passion from that initial coaching conversation. Like, look at the effect that initial coaching conversation had. And I know that you've recently become a certified professional coactive coach. That's a new line of letters after your congratulations.
Thank you.
Yeah. What's important to you about your ongoing development as a leader of this vision?
That I stay focused on it, I guess. That I'm like everyone else. All too often I forget to focus on my own personal development. I am fortunate that I had the opportunity to be trained as a coach and to achieve my certification as a coach, that I was given the time to do that and the space to do that. And I realized through that process, I don't invest in myself enough, just like everyone else. And so now I actually have this credential that's going to require me to, if I want to keep it, which is good. Um, yeah, but yeah, that importance of continuing to focus on my own self-development is key.
I think that's another good piece of guidance too for leaders in your type of role inside organizations, for them to become a practitioner of the work. Hopefully it's an investment the organization would be willing to make, or partially. And if they're not, it's just going to make your life so much easier if you're constantly enrolling people in the vision when you're walking the talk, right? They're spending time with you and you're coaching them. And then they can say, hey, you're doing that thing.
Yeah.
You're doing that thing that you're telling us is so good. And that was so good. Oh my goodness. I'm walking away with more energy, more insight, more clarity. This is great. So I think that's another tip I want to pull from the Christy King tip box for our listeners.
Yeah. Yeah, I know. I agree. I am hopeful that I'll just continue to be able to coach internally. I don't want to stop coaching. So in whatever capacity, I'm going to continue coaching and leverage that certification. I think that you're right. It gives me a level of credential, if not for anyone else, myself, that helps me feel that much more credible to be the voice of this change in our organization. And I can confidently say, I know exactly the power of coaching and I know exactly how we can develop coaches. So please let me.
Let me keep going.
Yeah.
This feels like a good place to start bringing us to a close, but I want to get your thoughts on, we all know that the past 4 years for all of us, there's been constant crisis, chaos, change, and inside organizations really navigating all of that, and the need really for people managers to bring more humanity into the day to day, because people are like, they're going through a lot. We're all going through a lot. Yeah. How are you seeing this work that you're doing and coaching, supporting people navigate these times?
Yeah. I mean, it's interesting. I think we had talked earlier about like coaching before the pandemic versus after the pandemic, like the humanization of the workforce. Like you mentioned that's it's been such a huge shift in the way people are showing up at work and maybe want to show up at work. I think coaching now, more than ever, is something that's so needed. I think there's so many moments that I've experienced in coaching that have been significant and powerful as far as like how it's helping people now.
Yeah.
But I'm regularly humbled and grateful by people's willingness to show up with utter vulnerability, even when we just met. But that coaching relationship creates that space for them to do that to really surface very difficult issues, and their willingness to just open up and invite me into that, to be there to champion them and to support them and just witness them. I'm just so grateful that I get to do this work every day, and that I can be there for people in that way, because I see it. It's transformational and it's so needed, and they're so glad to have that space to just work on these things.
Yeah. And it's feeling, I loved how you articulated it. Everyone's workplace has changed drastically over the past 4 years.
Yeah.
And so coaching it's part of the solution. It's not the only solution, but it's one, we think, incredible investment to be making into your people so that you can show up the way you just articulated. People managers have more tools in their toolkit and capacity to have conversations that maybe 4 years ago they never did, because the it was like, this is my work self, this is my home self. And, that got all blown up. It got all blown up, and it continues to be in a redesign phase. So, it's just as a shout out to other leaders in organizations who are in roles like yours to really consider this type of investment, because times have shifted, people are shifting, and we need different modalities to work with each other.
Yeah. And I think that's the thing that's just really been highlighted for me over the last several years is the importance of intentional leadership. And I feel like, though it may sound counter to what coaching really is, I feel like coaching is intentional leadership. It's taking that time intentionally to just stop and listen to someone and be curious about them very intentionally. So if you're struggling to connect with a person and understand what their needs are, you have to be intentional about it. And I think that you embody that when you're coaching someone.
These are good words. How can people find you, stay connected to you, maybe learn more about the work you're up to in the world?
Well, I'm sure you have all my biographical data, but I'm on LinkedIn, and speaking@bdo.com. That's my email address, and not a lot on social, but, those are the easiest ways to connect with me.
Great. We will put that in the show notes. We can find you on LinkedIn specifically. And any last words about your hope for this vision you're holding, or for spreading it up across the workplaces?
Yeah. I see a lot of promise. Honestly, it's kind of weird. I feel like this is a silver lining that COVID has given us. I hate to keep going back to COVID, but from a coaching perspective, the humanization of work that happened as a result of that, this surfacing of people wanting to talk about their wellness and well-being and having work-life balance or fit or whatever you call it, has just opened the door for coaching to come in and help support that. I feel fortunate that I was in the midst of this process when all of that happened, but I think it's growing exponentially. I think the interest and the importance on bringing coaching into organizations. So I would just encourage all leaders to please seriously consider how you're leveraging coaching, how you're building your coaches as leaders. I can't emphasize that enough, I guess.
Christy King, we love you here at UpLevel. I really appreciate the work you've been doing and with your team. So shout out to your team. You've got a great team with you as well. And witnessing you over the past, I don't know, I feel like it's been like 8 years or so, just seeing your transformation has been super inspiring. And so thank you for saying yes to sharing a little bit behind the curtain of what's going on over there. It's super valuable, and can't wait to see how it unfolds next. You said it's really promising, and the rocket ship has launched.
Yeah. There's a lot of promise, and I'm also patient. I've learned that skill as well.
That's another good tip for people in Christy King's roles and vendors, like to be patient, because this takes time.
Yes, it does, but it happens. So thank you so much for having me. It's been such a pleasure and an honor, Christy, working with you and Rachel. And I just can't wait for what's next.
Yoo-hoo!